and welcome to World Today. I'm your host Sharmeen Ali. After another recent round of unprovoked firing across the line of control from Indian-occupied Kashmir into Pakistani side of Azad Kashmir, the Foreign Office has summoned the Indian High Commissioner and asked them to stick to the 2003 ceasefire agreement. And however, lately this has not been happening. There have been many civilian deaths and many more injured in the Pakistani side of Kashmir, and there's been destruction of houses and shops and buildings and obviously people's properties and a lot of devastation there for the locals. We'll be talking about that on our program. And also India has deployed an additional 10,000 troops to Indian-occupied Kashmir, which may increase to 20,000. And this is amidst the hope that there would be peace in the region, but however it doesn't seem so because there is talk and concern amongst the locals that the Indian government at the moment might be preparing to remove certain constitutional amendments that give Kashmir a special status, which we will also be discussing with our analysts and guests today. In another segment, we'll be talking about Sharmeen Chenoy's film short documentary called Armed with Faith, which is about Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's bomb disposal squad, who are the brave men who are at the front line of the war on terror and who get injured all the time and who risk their lives each and every day in order to fight the war on terror for us. And they're the ones who are going straight into the areas where there are bombs about to detonate, and they keep the civilians and the population safe. That is the third. After winning 2 Oscars, Sharmeen Chenoy has yet again been nominated for this film for an Emmy Award. And at the end of our program, we'll also be discussing the stock market recent developments for today. So let's welcome our guests in our studio. We have with us Brigadier Shahid Jagir, who's a senior analyst, and we also have with us Dr. Adnan Sarwar Khan, who is an international relations expert, and he's also the head of international relations department at Namal University. Thank you, sir, both of you, for joining us today on World Today.
Thank you.
Let's begin with this. The firing across the LOC, Brigadier Sahab, I'll begin with you. And first of all, we'll show our guests a short report, then we'll discuss that. So please stay with us. We're going to show you a short report about this issue first.
The Foreign Affairs spokesperson Mohammad Faisal summoned the Indian Deputy High Commissioner Gaurav Ahluwalia for the second time in the span of a week after a series of unprovoked ceasefire violations by the Indian troops. The recent violations have led to the martyrdom of 1 woman in Nizapur sector. This was in addition to the injuries procured by 4 other civilians. These events have not occurred in isolation. India has been in direct violation of the ceasefire agreement since 2014. While escalation in the violations had been occurring since 2008, there has been a significant increase in the number of aggravation and casualties since the installation of the Modi government. The spokesperson has also expressed concern over the fact that the Indian violence seems to be deliberately directed towards civilians, while experts analyze that the increase in the casualties may even be a matter of Indian policy. According to the Pakistan-India Conflict Monitor, India has violated the ceasefire agreement 583 times in 2014. The number has shot up to 1,970 times in 2017. This is in stark comparison to only 11 violations occurring in 2003. Time and again, Pakistan has requested the United Nations Military Observer Group in India and Pakistan to play its role by acting upon the UN Security Council resolution to bring about peace in the region.
So, Brigadier Sahab, you saw this short documentary and a report actually. So, why is it that the Indian side has to target civilians? Because this is against every kind of humanitarian law or international convention. So, why is this happening? And it seems like from what the report says that the incidences are increasing rather than getting less. What is the reason for that?
Thank you very much. You see, India is pursuing a policy of coercive diplomacy toward Pakistan.
Okay.
And to fulfill that, this is one of the tools they are utilizing, that they keep firing along the line of control, violating the ceasefire violations, as has been told in the documentary, that there have been 1,970 ceasefire violations since 2017, which amounts to almost 3 violations per day. Now, this is very critical, where it is very inhuman as far as the policy is concerned, And secondly, it is not a norm of a soldiering that you start killing the innocent civilians. The Geneva Convention lays down clearly that the civilians will not be targeted in any armed conflict. And rule to that is that civilian, those who are in the battlefield, they are the one with whom you can fight for, but not with the civilians. So this amounts to not only a professional weakness of the Indian Army at the local level, but also the policy, the aggressive policy which the Modi government is having against Pakistan to fulfill the political desires that he has since it came into the government.
Right.
This is one of the tools they are employing, because he cannot, he is unable to address the local issues of the political nature which are there in the government which he is facing. So this is how he is compensating with that, by raising a slogan that I am a very mighty and strong Prime Minister, which is against, which is all all out for India the Great. So that's why this is increasing. But
Right.
Despite the fact that the 40 European parliamentarians have written letters to the Indian government about the human rights violation which is going on in Kashmir, and also because of the ceasefire
So it's being
violations.
acknowledged. So Dr. Adnan Sarwar Khan, this is Indian policy to target civilians. Isn't this something that can be taken up at the International Court of Justice or such an arena? The UN needs to play more of its role. What would you like to say about that?
Yes, you can say that it has become quite a policy of the Indian government over the years, particularly since the present resurgence of the Kashmiri freedom struggle. And one can go back to 1989, but specifically since 2010, when the pellet bulleting also started there, and it got very worsened since 2016. With the martyrdom of Burhan Muzaffar Wani, the young Kashmiri freedom fighter. Now, of course, already Brigadier Saab has said that it is against all norms of international relations and conventions and all related documents. Nevertheless, you see, India probably has made a point to harass, and just not harass in its lightest shape, but actually intimidate. And Kashmir, unfortunately, has become a story of torture and tears over the decades.
Absolutely.
And curfews and killings and pellet bulleting and disgracing all, but particularly the ladies, and arrests, etc., arson, looting, and you name it and you have it. So, but the point is that India probably is taking a very wrong benefit, criminally wrong benefit, I would like to use this adjective, of its economic might. And unfortunately again, the world as it is today is of that type which is business oriented and which says that India is an emerging regional and in fact world power. So
But
this
sir,
is
is there no legal recourse that anyone can take that this is happening and it should stop?
well, the legal recourse are there, but then if Pakistan goes to that extent, then indeed if the verdict comes of some sort which is a little, even a little to the disadvantage of to the Kashmiris and Pakistan, that would have then legal ramifications. But in any case, overall international law and the United Nations Charters, Article 51 particularly bestows upon such kind of people who are fighting for freedom the right for self-defense. And it, in that context, according to the Charter of the United Nations, Article 51 also is right of self-defense. So in that context, you see, even legally the Kashmiris are justified. Anyway, since 9/11, you see, India has been terming this as a terrorist movement, and the world at large was believing it also, and linking it with Pakistan very unjustly. But I would say that now, of late, the international media, the independent hearts and minds particularly, certain governments also, to the extent of United Nations Human Rights Council, and certain leaders of the world, different parts of it, they also have started condemning Indian brutalities, particularly on the human rights situation. So let's hope, and then you know that when our Prime Minister just recently went there, the President of the United States of America also mentioned that probably Prime Minister Modi wanted to have some kind of mediation.
It doesn't seem that way
so,
at all.
So
from
at
the
least one thing has
behavior.
happened.
Yes.
Out of all this gloom, that the world is becoming more and more conscious about
Yes.
Indian brutalities.
And there's acknowledgement that Kashmir is a big problem
but
by the US,
still I
China.
would say that overall, since it's a world of realpolitik and geoeconomics, so India is getting away with that. It is very, very unfortunate.
Right. So, Brigadier Shahid Jagir, now the United Nations Military Observer Group in Pakistan, what is their role supposed to be, and what are they doing at the moment about what's going on in this situation?
It's a very pertinent question. The United Nations Military Observer Group in India and Pakistan is mandated to observe the line of control. We have there are people here also, and people there in India also. Whereas on our side, all those officers of the UN, they always visit. They have no restrictions from our side. But unfortunately, Indians do not allow them to visit the Kashmir.
Okay.
What to talk of, visiting the line of control and observing the ceasefire violations and other things. They are just not allowed to go out of their camps in Srinagar and all. So that is very,
shows that
very.
the UN has absolutely no authority, that they are not exercising any of their
they
powers
do
or anything.
as you have said earlier, they do have the authority. But as my respected colleague has said, that the South Asian politics is such that the interests of the big Gs in South Asian politics, they know all the thing, as my respected colleague has said. But for their own personal interest, they turn their eyes the other way around. As Mr. Trump has said during the meeting with Prime Minister that he is ready to, but see how much hue and cry was made by the Indian media and Indian political leaders in that, and there was no official either denial or acceptance of the statement of President Trump. And some of they have gone to the extent of saying that it's a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan and we will not accept. Now, where Mr. Trump's statement has highlighted this issue and brought it to the international forum, that acknowledgement that yes, it's an issue which is hampering the South Asian security as well as a flashpoint for the nuclear exchange. Which, God forbids, if happens, will lead to a lot of destruction, mutual destruction on both sides. But the fact is that the political struggle of all China, America, Russia, and other countries in South Asia, that is not allowing, or they are not actually pressurizing the Indians to come up with the solutions. The United Nations, can put sanctions on any other country, those who are violating the human rights violations. But none from 1947 till now we have seen any restriction on India. Now, India is trying to convey and to say the word that Kashmir is part of India. Kashmir is not part of India. The Article 370 clearly gives the right of a different type, which the Kashmiris enjoy as a separate state.
Yes.
Kashmir is a part of a state. It's not part of the Indian constitution.
Right, and they're supposed to have their own president,
They
prime
are
minister.
supposed to have they have their own flag. They had their own prime minister till 1965 or 66. Burning of the Indian flag or maltreatment of the Indian flag in Kashmir is not a crime as far as the Kashmir laws are concerned. And they cannot buy, any Indian cannot go and buy land over there. Any Indian cannot go and get a job over there. Any constitution, any law which the Indian parliament has to pass, it has to be approved first from the Kashmiri parliament. And on their recommendation, it will become an act of law in the Indian parliament.
Right.
Without that, it's not possible.
Right. We'll speak further about this particular topic, about the special status of Kashmir. Dr. Adnan Sarwar Khan, I also wanted to ask you that now we've seen recent events, how they've been unfolding with the International Court of Justice verdict about Kurbashan Yadav. And Pakistan saw that as a victory, that he was acknowledged as a terrorist in a sense, because the case wasn't thrown out, he wasn't sent back to India. Then we've also had the Balochistan BLA declared a terrorist organization. Then you had Donald Trump's meeting with Prime Minister Imran Khan. So things seem to be going in the right direction. And now you also have Kartarpur corridor talks going on, where that's supposed to be in time for November for Baba Guru Nanak's birthday. So now you see a bit of a scenario evolving where things are looking better, and then suddenly then you have these ceasefire violations and other developments which we'll also go into. So one cannot really understand where things are going, because it seems like in this situation you take one step forward and two steps back.
Well, actually, if we place this into the full reference to context, Prime Minister Modi's election manifesto on this count was that he would be a little more tougher on Kashmir. So number one, politically he cannot afford to be soft any time near.
Okay.
While he may think about it in the next 2 to 3 years, but in this particular he is going to be quite hard on that.
But he doesn't need to be. He's already come back with this overwhelming majority. So he can now, he has nothing to lose. He can go and resolve the issues.
No, that's right. But anyway, he has to be answerable to the electorate. And the Hindu ultra-nationalist, religiously speaking, and quite negatively speaking, they are trying to focus on his each and every policy, particularly on Kashmir, you see. So one is this. Second is that I don't think so that these positive developments that you just had mentioned, actually in the natural course of direction it should have been like this. But Prime Minister Modi and the ultra religious outfits there, and the extremists and the supporters of violence in Kashmir, you see, even in the masses, they are of the opposite view. They may talk anything under the sun with, say, Pakistan or any other country. But I think on Kashmir at the moment they have taken a position that as long as Bombay culprits, as they term it, are not properly tried, you see, they would not enter even into the formal talks, even for the sake of talks for talks. But however, still, you see, I'm a little hopeful now that President Trump and certain other leaders of European countries, they may try to convince Modi to at least resume the talks. Though you see, we know that Indians would never change their basic position that Kashmir is theirs, you see, as they call so-called integral part of India, which historically is not. Begir Sahib has just told you, it's factually very, very wrong historically. Nevertheless, you see, they consider it as an anathema. They abhor the very idea about talking on Kashmir in a way that may lead to some kind of a referendum and plebiscite there. So they just want to, as far as I, as a student of international relations and politics, have understand, they just want to buy time, and meanwhile you see some of their policies like Ghar Vapsi policy to the Hindu pundits and all those who were fleeing, you see, for the last 5-10 years. Ghar Vapsi policy is very important policy to relocate them.
Okay.
And 35A would like to change the demography of, but here I would like to say one thing. You see, we still have a faith in the Indian Supreme Court. Indian Supreme Court nevertheless is quite a strong Supreme Court with integrity. So I think that even if Indian government at the center, Delhi, they try to move something for as a petition, as it has been rumored, and that's why you see the present trust is also there. Indian Supreme Court may be the defender of the basic constitutional provisions which guard Kashmir dispute.
Right. And speaking of constitutional provisions, now we're talking about how 10,000 additional troops have been sent to occupied Kashmir, and which may be increased to 20,000 per the officials. So, sir, Brigadier Sahab, now what is the reason why all these troops are being deployed there? There's a talk of this Article 270 that you were referring to earlier, and 35A being changed, and then there could be a backlash in obviously protests and all in occupied Kashmir. So what is going on in this situation exactly?
Let me give a few facts for our viewers. You know, Jammu Kashmir is a princely state. You know, when Maharaja allowed the Indians to, part of the Indian, he gave just three aspects of a state was given to India. One was its defense, second was its external affairs, and third was its communication. Nothing more than that was given.
Not finance?
Finance, yes.
Finance,
yes, finance was also part of that. So all these, this is being, now this all, your assertion which was, signed by Nehru and Sheikh Abdullah, father of Abdullah, Farooq Abdullah, this was protected by this Article 370 of the Constitution.
Okay.
And
370, yes.
yes, and now under this article, employment is under the state in the Kashmir. Then is acquisition of immovable properties under the state. Then the settlement in the state is also, other outsider cannot get and settled over there.
Okay.
Now that is why they are going to, repel this after this this Article 370.
So they've already been repatriated Hindus into that area
yes, that
as
is what
residents,
it is.
but
that
now
is what
they'll
it
make
is.
them
that
official.
That is what it is, because he want, as my respected colleague said, they want to change the demography of the Kashmir, so that the Muslims over there, which are at the moment in majority, becomes a minority over there. And they have also, the rumors are that the people, those who will go and migrate, the Hindus which will go and migrate in Kashmir, they will be given lot of privileges over there.
Okay.
So that is one. The one aspect is this, that the decision of Article 35A, which is challenged into the Supreme Court, its decision is about to come. The second important thing that I want to...
The Supreme Court is going to make a decision on this.
Yes.
And Dr. Saab was saying that they're reasonable. So
yes.
maybe they will not allow it.
No,
right?
but that's a very positive side that Dr. Saab is talking about.
Political movement from certain well-known quarters, and including the Prime Minister, I think is may be stopped legally by the Supreme Court.
Okay.
It's a very positive thinking that
bloodshed,
we
I
have.
hope it
But,
is,
there are other issues also which are affecting the Kashmir. Now, Jaswant Sinha, who was former finance and foreign minister during the BJP government, has very clearly said that Indian forces are killing innocent Kashmiris by using the brutal force. We are not losing, but have lost control over Kashmir. And he talks of the three things leading to this. The one is the policy of repression and brutal handling of the protest by the Indian occupied forces. The second he talks about is the wounds inflicted on the Kashmiri Muslims after the Pulwama attack. You see, all the Kashmiris in India were being treated as an, people not belonging to India. Students were kicked out from the universities. Even the female students were kicked out from the universities. Everyone was boycotted for their, business and all. So all these grievances, this cannot go away by just putting up the force. So at the moment, the Kashmir is, the Indian Jammu and Kashmir is 85,806 square kilometers.
Right.
About 500,000 troops are already there, which amounts to almost 6 soldiers per square kilometer.
Okay.
Now that is the biggest deployment in
Anywhere
an
in the
area
world, right.
of the military forces.
Right. So, sir, Dr. Adnan, why now the extra 10,000 troops that are being sent to Indian occupied Kashmir? What is the reason? The Indian government is saying that it's just because of to relieve the
yes,
troops that were
the
already
Indians
there,
are
etc.
saying, the governor and the rest of the other officials at the center, that there were the panchayat elections earlier on, then the soldiers got overstretched. They need some rest, so their replacement, but replacement should be equivalent of those who would be replaced. So this additional number is that. Secondly, that their provincial assemblies elections were postponed. So they probably are also making preparations, as they say. They say it's a routine kind of a matter. And thirdly, and most importantly, they are also saying that because of this Trump statement, the feelings have become re-energized in Kashmir amongst the Kashmiri freedom fighters and all those who are there up against India. So this also may lead to some kind of a, as they say, violence from the Kashmiri side. So therefore, in order to have a security mechanism already well placed there, they were requiring this.
Okay, but is this the real reason? I mean, what do we think that the real reason is that these troops have been deployed there?
You see, so many killings over there. The almost 100,000 killings of the innocent people, 31 children which were killed. Custodial killings 7,120, over 150,000 arrested, over 100,000 houses and shops were destroyed, 22,000 plus women raped. This is not a normal figure.
Right. So what do we expect now going forward with Kashmir? Sir, either of you can answer this. Do we expect to see more bloodshed now? So, or will things calm down? Will they get worse before they get better? Because it's a really big point of concern when you have a situation where now the US president has said that he's going to mediate for Kashmir and that Prime Minister Modi has asked him to do so. Yet, okay, there was a huge uproar in India about that, but Prime Minister Modi remained silent. And now suddenly you're seeing that more troops are being sent there. It seems like some activity is going on there, and which the locals are concerned about, which they're giving statements that they're worried about what's going to happen over there now. Are we going to expect...
DG police of Kashmir, Dilbar Singh, he has told AFP that we have requisitioned 200 companies, that amounts to 20,000 troops.
20,000 troops, right.
And he said that more will also be asked. India is, reportedly revamping the whole security system of the Kashmir. So there is something big is expected.
So if the Supreme Court does not give the verdict in favor of retaining those constitutional articles, 370 and 35A, then there could be protests, right, Dr.
There is certainly going to be create such a situation which would be adding further fuel to the fire. And I don't understand that why India is not learning any lesson from history. I mean, this kind of a solution has never been successful. And you see, this has to be through talks and dialogue. It has to go through the political process of talking to one another. And in fact, let me say like this, that earlier on we used to say that Pakistan and India are the main interlocutors or partners in dialogue through the UN according to the UN resolutions. But now third party also has added up. That is the Kashmiris themselves.
Absolutely.
It has almost become a triangular for all practical
and
purposes.
Prime Minister Imran Khan
Though
said
you
so,
see,
right
yes.
now recently
so
in
I
the
think
US
it would
that he
be
wants what the
important
Kashmiris
that the United Nations chief also expresses officially certain concern, and that the leaders of the leading countries of the world. But I am most worried, and I sadly noted that well, the Islamic countries of the world, Muslim countries of the world also not lowering any diplomatic contact builds up with them. I mean, look at such kind of apathy. I mean, what to say about the European countries and the United States and UK, but the point remains that as long as in the Security Council there are P5, the 5 permanent members, they can, I mean, 4 or 5 of them, except China, they may straight away veto any kind of sanctions or whatever on human rights violation of India on Kashmir, whatever, to such kind of a resolution. So, therefore, Pakistan is well aware of. And bilaterally, I do not think so USA would go to that extent. They have said that only if India agrees, we can be a mediator at the best.
If India
So,
agrees,
finally, I would say that I think this is still the writing on the wall, that India cannot remain on that track always. I mean, they have to be waking up to the call of the Kashmiris, and sooner than later, this is the call of the time. They must enter into the dialogue process. This is also the position of the government of Pakistan, and if that somehow gets started, at least some kind of a conflict containment, if not resolution, in the first stage. Of course, we need some containment to this brutality. It relates to very human beings there, and some non-Muslim Kashmiris are also getting killed. I mean, they also support in principle those who are basically Kashmiris, whether Hindus or Sikhs also, the movement. So, this is a great front there, and I think that it would not be in the long run not at all possible for India to escape this reality.
Right, and Brigadier Sahab, do you see a way forward with this situation that can avoid bloodshed and it can be resolved through peaceful means in any way?
Look, the way forward is always there, provided the logic prevails. Now, Modi at this time, you know, one of the segment on which he has won this election is the anti-Muslim and anti-Pakistan and anti-Kashmir sentiment.
Absolutely.
Now, if he backs out from that, he loses his own face, one. The second thing is that India at this moment in South Asia is in a very, very strong diplomatic position. You know, it has relations with Russia also. It has now on a honeymoon with US also. Despite the fact that India is creating trouble in Afghanistan, known to all, the US is unable to even stop Indians what you call as putting a spanner in the system of peace in Afghanistan. So that's one thing. That's one thing. But on the other, you see, the Farooq Abdullah in probably in June he has said that if Article 370, if it stays, we remain part of India. If it goes, we will not be part of India. Even Mahmouda Mufti has said that repealing of Article 370 will have very dire consequences. So, in all these things, till the time, as my worthy colleague has said, that somebody's mediate in between, according to the UN Convention, UN rules and regulations, which has been accepted by the India and Pakistan, that there should be a plebiscite, and the Kashmiri people should decide that which side they want to go.
Okay.
As it was in the Maharaja's agreement also, and the last days, although the last Viceroy of India, he did lot of unfair justification of 2 countries with us, but in the last days he also started saying that there should be a plebiscite in Kashmir. So there is no other solution till the time there is a plebiscite, and the Kashmiris are given their right of self-determination. They should be given the choice that how and which way they want to live. That is why they fought the Maharaja also. They fought the Kashmiris also. Even Maharaja did not allow the British rulers over here to settle down in Kashmir and buy the land over there.
Okay.
Yes,
It's always
he
had that
absolutely
status.
he did not allow them because he said that this is such a beautiful land. It every Englishman will come and started buying the land over here, and the whole status of the Kashmir will will turn into a different
And it still
mode.
remained that way.
It stays as such. So we have to accept both parties, Pakistan, India, and Kashmiris. They have to understand the ground realities. And instead of India, which is spending so much money on maintaining the line of control, why don't they spend it on their poor people?
Absolutely.
Why don't they spend it on the people, those who are not having toilets?
Yeah.
Why don't they spend it on their poor farmers, which are throwing away their milk and every other things, products which they produce because they are poor?
Absolutely. And sir, Dr. Hannan, now after the Pulwama incident in February, like we were talking about Pakistan and India, the world recognizing that it's a nuclear flashpoint, it got to be a very dangerous situation. Everybody was very concerned. And it's also now acknowledged that the Kashmiri struggle is a homegrown struggle. It's not coming from Pakistan. You've seen that when after the killing of Burhan Wani, the protests, he was a youth that grew up over there. And he was very much a Kashmiri local individual, starting from the age of 15, due to what happened to him, due to the atrocities that took place with him, and his brother was killed, etc. So you have so many freedom fighters like that over there. So it's obvious, even to the Indian government, that it's a homegrown struggle. And the rest of the world is also seeing not only there's a nuclear flashpoint going on, plus you're seeing India having a very distorted kind of policy internally towards Muslims. I mean, there's so many human rights violations. You're having mobs going and killing, and like beating up people who just to make them say Jai Shri Ram and things like that. The whole Hindutva policy, that's naturally being seen by the international community.
Well, you're absolutely right. One big thing which has happened is that the indigenousness of the Kashmiri freedom struggle has become beyond doubt. This now, even the friends, the friendly countries to India, they agree and they accept it. India itself also accepts that from inside their heart. So that's why they're highly worried. I mean, if earlier on they could say that, well, it is being supported by Pakistan or some organizations based in Azad Jammu and Kashmir, now they cannot say even that.
Exactly.
So I think that if, and I am very sure that the Kashmiris are now up for all kind of sacrifice and struggle. They have shown this to the world over, we believe, 1 lakh killings. India also agrees something like 50 to 60,000. The rest of the shapes of the brutalities cannot be really stated. So if they have accepted all that, I mean, they have gone to the point of no return. Let's accept this and understand this. So I would say that India can at the most delay this matter, but it cannot just put it under the carpet anymore. And sooner than later, as I have been already saying, they are going to face this problem in such a way that they have to realize that negotiations, and not negotiations for the sake of talks for talks. At the moment, they would be going for talks if United States and certain other countries press on that. However, I think they should move beyond. But one thing I would like to submit, that on this, you see, Indian government is getting some kind of a solace from the pro-Indian Kashmiri parties. So this is their trump card. The Kashmiris themselves have to realize as Brigadier Saab was referring to Mehbooba Mufti, that on 35, not on 35A and 370, but on the rest of the matter like independence or whatever you see, or the Indians say some kind of autonomy under 370, they should unite before you see it's too late.
Yes.
This is one thing which is damaging to the Kashmiri freedom struggle, and we, realistically speaking, we should be
Right.
accepting it. They should also be waking up to this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Adnan and Brigadier Shahid Jagir. And now, viewers, we're going to talk about Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, who's already won 2 Oscars in the USA about her human rights documentaries. And now she has made another documentary about the bomb disposal squad in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the brave soldiers who are at the front line of the war on terror, and they're the ones dismantling bombs right there at the border. So this documentary is called Armed with Faith, and it is nominated for an Emmy Award, and it follows the stories of men from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's bomb disposal squad. The 2 men are called Abdur Rahim and Inayatullah Tiger Khan. They say in the documentary that there's only one mistake defusing a bomb. It will be your first and it will also be your last. That is the critical nature of the jobs that they do. And basically this documentary follows Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's bomb disposal unit, and it covers the struggles of their security personnel. It's basically the aim of this documentary is to highlight the struggles of the security personnel on the front lines of the war against Al-Qaeda and the Taliban in Pakistan, and it's doing a huge service to Pakistan in making the international community acknowledge the sacrifices that Pakistan and its military personnel have made for the war on terror. And these brave heroes, the work that they do every day is extremely, extremely risky and difficult. And they have families, and the documentary showcases all of that and how their sentiments are and their emotions are, because they have all these concerns, and so do their families. So we wish her the very best, that Sharmeen Chinoy wins the Emmy in this particular nomination. So this nomination for Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy for an Emmy Award, it comes after her previous 2 Oscar wins for Saving Face and for A Girl in the River, the Price of Forgiveness. Those 2 documentaries were about acid burn victims, and the first one was, and the second one was about an honor killing victim who had survived. And Sharmeen won Oscars in both of those documentaries. So now hopefully she will also win an Emmy for this documentary called Armed with Faith. Now we're going to speak about the stock market's performance today. We have with us Mr. Zafar Moti. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Can you please tell us, Zafar Saab, how the stocks performed today? How was the stock market's performance?
Look, you are representing Pakistan television, and that's supposed to be media which represents the government. The government is not interested in getting the capital market on its toes again. Market is doing very badly. The situation is very bad. Every day we see 200-300 points to go down, and the situation is getting grimmer and grimmer every day.
Even though we're Pakistan television, we are trying to give an accurate picture of the stock markets, and I appreciate you giving us your feedback about that. Sir, so what can be done to improve the situation of the stock market?
The government promised us 20 billion rupees bailout, and we haven't seen it as yet. It's been the negotiation has been going on with top stockbrokers for last 1.5 months, but we haven't seen it as yet. And the market is showing its concern. The investors are showing its concern. Last time when we asked the government to give us the bailout, it made the government almost double the amount they invested. And this time we have already promised them that they will make double the amount of what they have invested. But the government is showing no signs of getting this amount to the capital market, as well as not making any profit for themselves.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Zafar Moti. That was, thank you for giving us that information and your point of view on this matter. Viewers, thank you so much for joining us today. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for World Today. We'll see you next time on our program. And from me, Sharmeen Ali, and our team at World Today, bye-bye for now.